my opinions could change. Whoa, 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 who are you? Who are you? It's me, Harrison, from the year 2026, and I'm here to tell you, Harrison, from 2022, the Multiverse Saga only gets worse. It's incredible how small Disney has gotten over the years. It's so bad, the DC universe is trending. That's right, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, he's the real deal. And yeah, things may look a little different in the future, but trust me, the MCU is only going downhill, so you better jump ship now. I'll catch you later. Well, that was a little crazy. Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is now complete. We've had 7 movies in the past 2 years to keep the universe moving after the incredible ending to the Infinity Saga. So let's look back at the movies that jump-started the next segment of the MCU and rank our favorites in order. Kicking things off at number 7 is Thor: Love and Thunder. This one is without a doubt at the bottom of my list, both for Phase 4 and maybe all of the MCU. The overall problem I had was the movie felt like it was trying to be Thor Ragnarok. And it was failing to do that. It was supposed to be a comedy, but there were so many jokes that fell super flat. I remember nobody in the theater was laughing. Jane Foster returns in this one as Mighty Thor, so she has the powers of Thor, which was an interesting twist. The romance, however, between Jane and Thor was like a soap opera. It was really cheesy and underdeveloped. Another thing that stood out to me is that the runtime is just under 2 hours, and you can definitely tell a lot of the story is rushed with very little character development. Perhaps the saddest part of all is the wasted use of a great villain in Gore the God Butcher. Christian Bale plays the intimidating villain, but he has so little screen time, we don't really see him be intimidating. So with all of those problems combined, I genuinely couldn't find a moment that I liked from this movie. Number 6, Eternals. This may be the most comic booky live action movie Marvel has ever made. What I mean by the most comic booky is that the lore and the design is like it's straight out of a comic book. It has this real alien, science fiction, Saturday morning cartoon feel. The ensemble cast is loaded with talent, but no one character really stands out. The story is also all over the place. We follow this group of super powerful beings who are all immortal, until they start dying off because another group of super powerful beings. For me, it was hard to get invested because it was such a high stakes story with the potential end of the world and the fact that we had just met these characters and we were still learning things about them. It was just too much all at once to really be meaningful. I watched this movie for the first time on Disney Plus, and there's an option to watch an IMAX enhanced version instead of the standard widescreen version. So the aspect ratios on screen were constantly changing. When it comes to aspect ratios and the ability to change it, from a production standpoint, I prefer it to never change at all. But if it does change, at least make it subtle, right? The director chose to add the IMAX enhanced version to Disney Plus, and the constant format change was very distracting. So that kind of ruined the movie watching experience even more for me. At number 5 is Black Widow. It's the first Marvel movie in Phase 4 and the first to follow behind the massive footsteps of Avengers Endgame. It's sort of an origin story, sequel, hybrid for everyone's favorite spy superhero, Natasha Romanoff. The action is really fun with some great hand-to-hand combat sequences. We meet some new characters that fit really well, and honestly, I'm a fan of getting David Harbour and Florence Pugh involved in the MCU. The plot, however, reminds me of like a James Bond movie. There's this sinister Russian man who takes advantage of women, and then he has a secret plan to take over the world. Our hero infiltrates his secret lair and then inevitably blows it up and then escapes just in time. It seems like this was the last hurrah for Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow. This doesn't really impact my ranking of the movie, but for those who don't know, there was a major falling out between Johansson and Disney over how this movie was released. Now, back in 2021, with all the craziness that happened with COVID, there was a lot of theaters that were shut down, but actors typically make their money off of ticket sales. So it was in Johansson's contract that the movie be released only in theaters. But with the launch of Disney Plus, Disney added it to the streaming service. She ended up suing Disney, and everything eventually was settled down. Everyone got what they wanted. But this is one of the few, if not only times, an A-list celebrity in the MCU has gone after Disney. So all of that doesn't really impact my ranking, but it does kind of leave a blemish on the project as a whole. Number 4, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I have mixed thoughts on this movie because the overall direction was darker than most Marvel movies, which was, in my opinion, a great change of pace for the MCU, and there were some really cool moments. But the use of the multiverse is so over the top that it's not impactful. I love the darker tones of the characters and the set pieces. The action is pretty brutal compared to other Marvel movies because usually they try to be family friendly with the violence. Director Sam Raimi made something really different and unique for this series, and it stands out visually. Now, when it comes to the plot, if you missed the WandaVision series on Disney+, then you're gonna be lost from the start of this movie. You'll be very confused as to why Wanda is the villain and why she turns into the Scarlet Witch and kills just a ton of people to get what she wants. And then there's the whole idea of the multiverse, where Doctor Strange can recruit other versions of himself to stop Wanda. But my biggest problem with that idea is that from a storytelling perspective, nothing has value anymore. If you can just write an alternate version of a character or event and then change things dramatically about that original person or event, then it loses its significance. The scene where Wanda kills the Illuminati is crazy because she takes out a bunch of heroes, but because they're not from the universe of the main storyline, it doesn't really matter in the end. So I think there's just too much depending on the multiverse to enjoy this as a standalone movie. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate everyone who clicks that button. Also, like the video so it can spread to more people. Thanks for doing that. Let's get to my final 3, starting with Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. The visual effects in this movie are fantastic and stand out as maybe the strongest part. The animation of the rings being used in fight sequences is super cool, especially for the father-son battle at the end. The action is fun and unique with a heavy focus on martial arts combat. This movie has some of the best fight choreography in the MCU, which I would gladly watch more of compared to a fight that is completely CGI. We meet Shang-Chi for the first time and he's a very likable and dynamic hero. It's an entertaining origin story with a pretty simple plot. I'm always a fan of stories that show a father and son relationship, so this one connected with me in that kind of way. Most of the time the dialogue is kind of cheesy and the jokes didn't really make me laugh that much, but overall it's a great introduction for a hero that we've never seen before and for a universe that's really interesting. And outside of a few cameos, this may be the only movie in Phase 4 that can truly exist on its own, and that is a good thing. At number 2, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. It's a massive tribute to Chadwick Boseman, and it's clear that director Ryan Coogler did not want to overlook Boseman's significance, not just as a character, but also as a person. There are such strong themes of grief and loss. There's a lot of dialogue about the grieving process and pain, and it's good to talk about these hard topics and to see our heroes be so relatable. I don't think we've seen this much sadness in a Marvel movie before. And because of that, this movie feels more mature than the first Black Panther. The music is awesome and plays a big role in connecting us to the story. Another thing I like is the great performances from the main characters. We have a mostly female cast and everyone is unique and plays their role well. Queen Ramonda and Namor are the standout performances for me. What keeps it from the #1 spot is that the story doesn't seem complete. The intrigue and the climax in the third act felt disconnected from what had been building throughout the entire movie. The plot also seems like it's just another chess piece in the larger game that is the MCU. So because of those things, I'm ranking it at number 2. And finally, at number 1, Spiderman No Way Home. This is one of the most fun, exciting, and emotional movies Marvel has ever made. It's so many things wrapped in one. It's funny, it's thoughtful, lots of great action, and there's so many surprises along the way. We knew before the movie was released that this would be the first time we experienced the Spider-Verse in live action. Villains from Spider-Man movies over the past 20 years would appear in Tom Holland's universe because of the multiverse, and Doctor Strange would be recruited to help out. And then the biggest surprise of all happened when other Spider-Men appeared in that universe as well. People who hated on Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and people who hated on Andrew Garfield, when they saw this movie in theaters with all three Spider-Men together, people went crazy and loved it. You couldn't help but smile seeing them interact with each other, and then to see their iconic suits again and their fighting stances all at once, it's a huge blast of nostalgia and fan service. But does the story hold up without all of that? And I think it does. The multiverse does play a big role in the story, but Peter's journey throughout it all is still the main focus. His friendships and his relationship with Aunt May are front and center, and all of the emotions that come with what happens to them. Even the premise of Peter actually trying to help the villains who appear in his universe, that's why Spider-Man is one of the most beloved superheroes of all time. People all over the world are able to connect with this young, brave hero, and Tom Holland just plays this role incredibly well. He's so talented and makes the character so relatable. Whenever he gets choked up as Peter Parker, you can't help but want to cry too. This movie is by far my favorite of Phase 4, and the argument could probably be made for this being the most dynamic Spider-Man movie yet. Overall, Phase 4 has been entertaining, but in more of a turn your brain off kind of way. Marvel is putting a lot of their eggs into the multiverse basket, and because of that, it seems like there's been a dip in quality in both storytelling and character development across the board. With the start of Phase 4, and then on to Phase 5 and Phase 6, Marvel is calling these next few phases the Multiverse Saga. So they are only going to double down on the multiverse from here. And who knows, by the time we get around to the next Avengers movies at the end of Phase 6, my opinions could change. Or not. Well, that's my ranking of the MCU's Phase 4. Let me know your rankings in the comments below. Check out my reviews for these movies from Phase 4, and I'll see y'all later.